Okay, so we normally only have one guest on the Applied Theatre podcast, but today we have three. Would you be able to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your role in Trybe House Theatre Company?
Okay. I'm Chenube Ruth Bailey. I'm the creative producer for Trybe House. I've come from a theatre background, musical theatre background, went specifically into dance, and then sort of found my way to theatre through Trybe. So yeah.
I'll fire off next. So I'm Stefan Livingston. I'm the wellbeing lead at Trybe. And my background's actually in psychology, working with adolescents in sort of different spaces. So everything from the youth offending team to social care to CAMS, and really focusing on how we can improve outcomes for young people who are maybe considered maybe more challenging. I think talking with the team now about the prospect of bringing sort of mental health and well-being together with theatre is a really nice sort of means of positive expression, self-expression. It really caught my interest, and that's kind of how we got here today. And I'm currently a medical student, so we'll be a little bit different going forward. That's how we kind of got to here, really.
Cool. And I'm Philip. I'm the artistic director of Trybe House Theatre. My background has always been working with young people, community groups, and also theatre professionals. So an amalgamation of all of those groups of people has led towards me starting up and working alongside my amazing colleagues at Trybe House.
And for you, Philip, I know we've spoken before, Trybe House seems like a natural evolution in your career, but how did the company come together?
Yeah, so Trybe House was something in terms of the existence of the group, that had been something that I'd always had in my mind for like at least the last 6 years or so. Excuse me. So previously I'd worked in Birmingham where I started up a company, but I was really keen to start a company in London specifically, just it being my hometown, and it also being a bigger city in terms of people and the need for this kind of work, the kind of work that we do, to be back at home. So it was during the killing of George Floyd that I had a lot of time to sort of think to myself about when was the appropriate time to sort of try and give it a go. And it felt like that felt like a catalyst, that event felt like a catalyst to like really reach out to young Black men. This is like the height of the pandemic. And then this situation happened. So I was thinking about like isolation and then also the like manipulation of people and Black bodies, and there just being a need for a group that exists to make people belong, because this was a time where like social media was like completely divided and split on opinion on this case. You know, you had people putting like black squares on their like Instagrams, but at the same time you also had some Black people wondering if that was enough. And then you had the emergence of like Black organizations and Black-led companies sort of having an emergence of letting everyone know that they exist against people who were also equally like questioning why these things are happening. So there was just a lot politically and socially happening. And so it just felt like the right time to go, you know what? There's a real need for this right now, not just because of the killing of George Floyd, but just socially where we were at, in terms of providing a space for young Black men to thrive and just be nurtured. Because actually there were like some really alarming statistics that during the pandemic specifically, in terms of stop and search regarding Black people, it was on like an all-time high, which was like really, really alarming. So it was like thinking like the outside world is quite scary, but also being in the inside world is quite scary because we're isolated. But if I'm isolated and I go outside, I'm being isolated in another type of way. And so that was the spark really, to enact on something that I'd thought about for years. But I think timing wise, it felt like the right time. So I mentioned it to both Chenube and Stefan, and they both kindly said, like, wherever you're going with this, like, I'm interested and I'm fully involved and committed. So that's actually how the group formed.
And Stefan and Chenube, what were your interests in joining Trybe House and starting this company?
Well, for me, I think I've shared a lot of similar thoughts and visions that Philip has, mainly in dance though, so not necessarily in theatre, but I've always wanted to do something for young Black men and women through dance. So when he approached me with the idea of doing this with young Black men, I was like, this is so in line with something that I've always wanted to do, and if anyone's going to make it happen, it's going to be Philip Morris. So I was so excited to just get involved in whatever way he needed me, and like he said, it just felt like, in terms of what was going on in the world at the time, it just felt like the right time to make it happen, because someone like me, I'll have all these thoughts, have all these ideas, but we'll never find the right time to actually make it happen. So it just felt like it all happened at the right moment. So I was really appreciative of Philip coming to me with letting me know about this idea, and so enthusiastic from then up until now about where it could go, and seeing where it's gone from that moment, from that simple WhatsApp message that he sent about this is what I want to do, seeing it grow from then till now has been a real blessing. And it's definitely like, it's so much bigger than I ever would have imagined it to be. Like it's already come such a long way, and I'm not surprised at how far it's gone, but I'm just really like impressed with how quickly it's moved, how much recognition it's gained already, and it just makes me so excited for what's to come in the future, and I feel so grateful to be part of such an amazing and enthusiastic and passionate team as well.
So me and Phil had spoken kind of for quite a bit about, well, not under the name of Trybe, but just this kind of thing about spaces for particularly young Black men, especially those from complex or challenging backgrounds. And I think, given my personal background, working in the likes of CAMS, working with young people who are involved in offending behaviour, it was really quite interesting. It really caught my attention. And in CAMS, more often there are the use of artistic, creative and drama therapies sort of being used quite widely, particularly in the CAMS service that I was in Surrey. And I thought, actually, hold on, we're not just, this isn't just interesting because it's interesting. It's also interesting because there is actual research to support the benefits of using creative approaches to well-being. So I think that caught my attention quite a lot, and the prospect of I'm in a sort of a bit of a more academic world generally, but actually the principle of improving exposure, representation and engagement of Black people in general into particular spaces is something that's really important for me. So I think whether it's medical school or within areas like psychology or things like theatre, which actually is a really beautiful area for young people to get involved in, that really grabs me. And I think when we're like, at the moment, there is growing engagement with people from Black heritage in the theatre. But I think for us, one thing is about the types of stories that we tell. And I think one thing that I remember Phil talking about is being passionate about showcasing the best of the community, the strengths of the community. So the angle is about building strength, building resilience, building a positive representation of young Black men who also come from potentially really challenging backgrounds. It's really, really appealing. Really, really appealing. So yeah, Phil's my bro. So once there's something we can overlap on, I was like always gonna try and get involved and see what we could do, really. And it's really exciting. It is really, really, really exciting.
It is super exciting, and that's why I was so enthusiastic about getting you onto the podcast to talk about the work that you do. How would you best describe that work for somebody that knows nothing about Trybe House? Who are you and what is it that you do?
So I'd say like the key headlines of what we do is that we, as a company, we celebrate commonality. We celebrate stories. And we also like just celebrate like each other individually, like. And so I'm often asked like, why Trybe? Why what's that about? And why is it spelled with a Y? Which I really enjoy, because the reality is every social group is a type of tribe because they have a commonality. If four of us are to be massive fans of football, we understand some of the terminologies, we understand some of the like intricacies and the nuances, which is a really like special thing. And so with Trybe House, like we just celebrate the fact that on one surface, obviously they're all identified as young Black men. But actually within that, and that's one surface, but there are things like food and particular social events and old stories that they know, or sayings from their parents and stuff that makes them feel like they are, to make them realize actually that they're a part of history, they're a part of time, and also in terms of being theatre makers as well. Like they're all theatre makers. That's a whole other surface. And so like, yeah, so we celebrate commonality, we celebrate difference as well. So like as a commodity, they all have different upbringings and different stories and ways of getting in and ways of expressing themselves. And so like we focus a lot on the individual, like how can we champion people, you know what I mean, and support their artistry. So there's kind of like branches of like what we do, but yeah, I'd say we celebrate commonality, we celebrate differences, and we celebrate individuality. Like those are and I think that's quite unique in that sometimes it's all solely ensemble. It's all about the group doing everything at the same time, or on the other side, it's only about the individual, but we're trying to do a bit of both actually, and celebrate ourselves as well, because it's not often that for them, for people, for even like the Royal Court's sake, that they see a company made of young Black artists within our own right. Like Stefan, works really closely with mental health. He's an artist in his practice. Like when he does his, like he would go into that later, but like he does like mindfulness techniques and stuff that's like essential to like performing and living. And you know what I mean? And Chenube's our creative producer. Like there is always a creative engine behind everything that we do. And so like we relish in the idea of there being a new type of structure. Do you know what I mean? In terms of executive decisions, they're made across the board. It's not me. You know, I'm an artistic director. It's not that all the decisions are made by me. It's not at all. Like we're all a leveled consortium of people. So yeah, I think it's been really refreshing to own that. And we've had like such amazing responses from companies and people who are like, we love your structure. We love what you do. It's so different. It's so refreshing. We are here to speak about pain, but we're also like, we are here to celebrate, to celebrate the people that we work with. Experience or no experience, you know what I mean? The fact that they engage with Trybe is a victory.
Yeah, it also helps them realize the lengths that they can go to as well. Because just thinking back to one of the participants that got involved in our recent project, when they sent us their feedback after the project, they were saying things like, I'd never written before. I didn't think I would be interested in writing, and now I'm, I want to take that further. Now I feel like a creative, and for me, that is so important as part of Trybe and part of the process, is to feel like you're actually, a creative, like you are, it's already there, but to have that realization is that sort of next step. And then whether it's through Trybe or not, but just taking that with them as they progress onto their journey. And for me as well, what I love so much about what we do is that we're facilitating young Black men, but we're ultimately contributing to diversity within the industry. So they're going on to be in other spaces as well, not just with Black people, but in other spaces. Look at the fact that we're, one of the first associate companies to be fully Black company in Royal Court. It's about things like that. It's about contributing to diversity, bringing people like us into those spaces, and bringing their talents as well. So for me, it's an ongoing thing. It's not just, it doesn't, necessarily start and end in Trybe, but it's where they can go after that as well. That is really important.
It is. And I think that is one of the best things about the work that we do, is this aim to cultivate pathways. Like, it's such a wonderful thing that we get to experience and aspire to achieve for the participants that we work with, because not only do we see the work that we deliver and achieve with participants on this kind of present level, where we've just delivered it, we've seen the value of it, but we then may get to experience it when we speak to those participants again 6 months down the line. But then, to then think that in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, the young people that we've worked with will be within this industry, and hopefully taking it and shaping it and responding to the times that they live in. I find that so rewarding, really, really rewarding. Could I ask, what is the demographic of participants that you typically work with, and what are some of the approaches that you use?
Yeah. So our demographic is 16 to 25. Reasons being are, according to reports from the Centre for Mental Health, there tends to be a deterioration in mental health post-secondary school that is quite common within young Black men. But these are due to things such as racism, poverty, and other social constructs. And so it's a really sensitive age, that if you are, not necessarily that you have to be academic, but the facts are the facts, in terms of the support needs, they are not often met beyond that age. And you if you don't sort of fend for yourself and find your own way to maybe college or, and beyond, that tends to be a really dark patch. And so we really believe in early intervention. And so our aim is just to simply provide a space for young Black men to explore theatre, whether they've never experienced it before, whether they've done a couple of shows before, whether they're in drama school. All experiences are valid of that, because there's always going to be some form of oppression of some form, whether it's financially or socially. And so we put on programs to help develop and nurture them. And so in terms of what that looks like and what that consists of, we will focus on a topic that we will zoom in on and look at different ways of expressing that. So in our most recent project, the theme we focused on was joy, and the different aspects of joy and the things that bring us joy and make us feel that, internally, externally, and you name it. And so each day we brought in different types of forms and mediums that they can choose to, as a toolkit to express themselves. So we brought in someone from the literary department to speak about writing. We brought in 2 rappers to give them a workshop on that, to also explore spoken word. We sort of spoke about the different avenues of joy. We spoke about food, and there was a lovely thing regarding the commonality of food and the food that they connect with, and it being a really like communal space where people think of like their uncles throwing a party or a wedding or you name it. And then we kind of kept building. So we went to, we spoke about like, an event that brought you joy. What place were you? Who was there? And then we actually, we spoke about pain, which was a really interesting juxtaposition, but how a painful process has led some of them to a joyous place, which is really, really good. And so, yeah, and joy in terms of expressing who you are was something that we looked at as well, which led to each day there being some type of like sharing of that. And so we collated and gathered all of their content and then created a showcase / sharing at the end of the week, which is really, really powerful. And so our aim is to kind of just respond to the room, like whatever themes are popping up in the room, whatever they want to speak about or express, we just like really listen to them, and then anchor them and support them in further expressions. Yeah.
And following on from that process, Philip, does that then lead to a product like a sharing, or what is your ideal outcome or aim from the time that you spend with those participants? Yeah,
we always in our artistic planning, we always aim for there to be the shared learning, like the end product of showing what tools they've been given have led them to. That's like really essential in our practice from an evaluative process, because we want to keep on like checking in with our programs and how they're doing, and actually checking on the impact that it's making. And if ever it wasn't making enough of impact, we need to sort of go back to the drawing board. But like video documentation for us is such a useful tool. And another, I would say, a much newer way of evaluating, from having like papers and having score charts and all of that kind of stuff. We're really interested in holistically trying to change things. We're trying to like give everything a bit of a facelift. In terms of the traditional, way of capturing data and information and journey, it's really mundane to have these pieces of paper, and it's not that it doesn't have its place, but how can you truly track one's journey when when actually verbally expressing how they've felt about something suits them best, rather than the comprehensive aspect of writing a few paragraphs, do you know what I mean, or whatever it might be. So yeah, capturing data is really important to us in all forms, and so we always try and film stuff.
I think what's really difficult is, when for any service, when you're trying to kind of show that what you do has value, you're asked to do things like outcome stars and sometimes things that don't necessarily truly reflect an impact on different types of communities. So when working in previous role, working with children who used to go missing from home regularly, one thing, we'd be asked to produce outcome stars where you kind of had to get numbers that showed a kind of arbitrary improvement in different domains of a young person's life. But actually, the real impact of what you're going to do, if you've got someone who's going through a range of different things, 6 weeks of intervention, 12 weeks of intervention at the time, the outcomes are, in my opinion, very questionable. But if over, a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, what you're doing has longer term impact, and I know might be challenging to kind of capture, that's where I think kind of that gold standard is. For the young people that we work with, thinking back to the program that we just done with Royal Court, there's one particular young person who had never done anything in theatre before. And, initially we could say, we could ask some questions around, did you find Trybe useful? What did you like? What didn't you like? going forward, would you consider theatre, etc.? That captures a very short-term kind of short-term picture. But if in 5 years that young person is making a way for themselves within theatre or any kind of creative field, I think we've done had a really positive impact. And kind of beyond that, there's also the things that we do within the program to kind of expose those young people to content around mental health. And that's not to say that we're a mental health service, we're not, but exposing them to ways of managing feelings of anxiety, depression. Often what you have within lots of different groups, but something that I've noticed amongst particularly young Black men, is that mental health becomes a term, mental well-being becomes a term that is often used to describe someone who can't cope, can't manage, can't be functional. It's a sign of weakness. There are so many emasculating, or better than that, disempowering connotations to mental health and well-being, that the people that we work with don't recognize that what they are experiencing are symptoms of difficulty, and that inevitably leads to young people not engaging with support services until much later down the line. That symptoms that they may have been having that might have been quite readily manageable, treatable, become much more complex because they're left to in an unmanaged state. And I think that is also sort of something that's really important that we try to bring. Like at the last program, we went through some grounding techniques, which is something that I quite like, mainly really for people who are experiencing anxiety. It can be used for people who may experience dissociation, but again, I'm not saying we're a specialist mental health service, but it can be helpful to recenter yourself, essentially. And the way that young people engaged in it and trusted the process of what they were doing. Young people who probably, if someone in school said, oh yeah, let's do grounded techniques or mindfulness, they'd be like, nah, man, allow it, I'm not doing that. Do you know what I mean? But actually, it's creating a space where, because of the different things that we're trying to bring in, it actually feels quite safe to explore and just getting an idea and an understanding of what does good, bad, challenging mental health and well-being, what does it actually look like? Why is it that I get a kind of a physical response? Like, why am I always climbing up or sweating when different things happen? I always thought that was just calm, like I'm fine, I'm calm. But actually, no, it's anxiety, and if that happens repeatedly, is that something that we maybe need to think about? Can we find ways of you still feeling empowered? You know, take away, work on those stigmas, still feel empowered, but actually you're gonna be on top of this, so that it's not something that, you know, is plaguing you until one day, you have something maybe a little bit more challenging come up. So yeah,
that's so insightful, Stefan. And I think that is one of the most attractive qualities of your company, besides your own individual skill bases, like to be able to have a creative arts company that has a well-being lead and a practitioner who is completely focused on the psychological aspects of what's going on within the room. And just to ask, within the team, what are some of the most interesting things about that marriage between your practices that you've found? What is it? Is there anything that you think, oh, actually, that's really interesting that you know that, or you do this, or?
If I go first, I think what's really cool is that actually these guys don't realize how much they already do that is used in other areas of health and well-being. Like, there are so many little techniques that I've seen Phil working with the group. I'm like, oh, you're doing this, you're doing that, and they have different labels, and I'm like, oh, it's really quite cool. And actually, I think the difference is really it's just about how you tie it. tie it together, but the quality of the work is really quite powerful. And I think I've always described myself as someone who's not creative. I still think I'm about as creative as a slice of apple pie. But it's nice to even just see how these guys think, because it is different, but it's different in a cool way. Like, it's very, very broad. And I know I can be like, oh, this is this, da 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 da. And actually, like, it's nice to hear like different ways of thinking.
Yeah, I think they complement each other really nicely. Being in the space at Royal Court, with the project we just did, it was like this. I say simple things like the games we did to get to know the group and things like that. Yes, that's working creatively, but it essentially provided them with that we provided a safe space for them to then share with us those stories that came out of them, because some of them unprovoked went quite deep in what they shared with us. And I think having that creative outlet in the ways that we did enabled them to do that. They felt like they could express themselves even more freely than they probably would have at the beginning of the session before we even started. So I think having that I just feel like one complements the other really well, and vice versa. And it's really nice to have someone in the team who can sort of support that in the way that it needs to be. Because as a creative, I don't know. I mean, I know about well-being in the sense of my own well-being, if that makes sense. But having someone there who understands, what it takes to support people through that journey in the room is very, very beneficial. Because if I was alone in that room, listening to these young men talk about, past traumas or things like that, I wouldn't have a clue how to support that in the way that Stefan would. So it's just really, I think one definitely complements the other really well. And I love watching that happen in the space.
Philip, anything from you on that one?
Yeah, just that the experience that Stefan brings as a well-being leader is invaluable. And I think it's what truly rounds off the experience of being a safe space. I think, it's one thing having someone in the space who's like clinically informed in terms of the mental health process, but to have someone who also, in this context, actually looks like them and identifies with references that they bring up and is able to contextualize the experience and provides like safety nets. So like going through grounding techniques, I just from an outside perspective, I could see the effect it was having in such a positive, safe way. They completely trusted Stefan, and I suppose it alludes to the fact as to why this group also exists, is because there is a massive distrust with medicine, with mental health, with clinics, with even the term mental health. And so our aim is just to continue to break those stigmas. I genuinely, the question is always like, how do we bridge the gap? Like, I've seen it in so many articles and newspapers, and I've been in loads of forums. But the reality is, you need to get people with relatedness in on these jobs. It's everything. It's honestly everything. I genuinely believe if Stefan's role had been made of someone, if it wasn't Stefan, it was someone from an entirely different background who doesn't have the same even social, let alone even ethnicity, just coming from the same type of background, economically, class, system-wise, it would have made an entire difference. Those exercises wouldn't have been a success. And what's wonderful also in Stefan's role is that regarding access, whenever we say to our members, whenever they're feeling a little bit doubtful or a little bit they're in a bit of a spot of trouble or they need some tips, Stefan is consistently available for them. So to meet that creatively, it's like a perfect harmony. Like you said, like Stefan said, like both of you said, actually, there are some exercises we do and I just don't know the word for it. But Stefan knows what the word is, do you know what I mean? Which is wonderful. So Yeah.
You are officially the Royal Court's first associate company. How did that come about?
Yeah, so it feels nice to be able to like talk about it for the first time. So I um, I spoke to Vicky Featherstone and Lucy Davis, the artistic and executive directors at the Royal Court. And I just told them about what it was and what the plans are. So I just said, started a new company with some really close friends of mine. These are the aims and objectives. And actually I expressed an interest in us like collaborating, being involved from just any aspect, whether it was partnership or having been offered some space. And actually it was Vicky Featherstone, both her and Lucy actually were like, dropped the name like associate partnership, which I like was like, yeah, we'd be all over that. And so what was really nice is they posed the challenge to me, like a really positive challenge of like, go away and actually have a think as to what you want that to be, what that means. Because a lot of places or theatres have associate partners, but we don't actually know what it is. Like it's, and so for me, it was essential for both parties. It was essential that it wasn't just about like space, because theatres can also hold space, but what exchange of learning is actually happening. And so we went away and thought of some ideas as to what that might look like, proposed it to them, and we were really ambitious in our ideas. And actually they looked at them and said, this doesn't feel like anything outside of our remit. And then we just continued to, I wouldn't even say negotiate, but like fine line what those things were. And it was a really, really smooth process. And then before you know it, we had a contract agreement, which we signed, and then the partnership began. So what was really nice is when the project began, we had already started the partnership. And so it was amazing to have these young men come in to the building for the first time, take them for a tour throughout the building, and then actually explain that this is the beginning of a 3-year journey in this space. And that our ambition is that beyond year 3, that we know, even for the Royal Court and us, we are hopeful that we no longer need the space, that we have our own space, you know what I mean? Which is really powerful, in that we just saw their faces kind of light up and go, wow, that's a good start, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? So that was how the associate partnership came around. And actually, like, what we're extremely proud of is the fact that actually, regarding the Royal Court, they've never had an associate partnership before in all its history. So this is really, in terms of talking about systematic change, a massive step for the court, obviously, as well as us as well. And so I really commend that bravery in giving this like really new formed company, which started during pandemic, giving us the keys to the building, which is really...
Well, that is because of the strength of what it was that you were offering, clearly. And that's so funny, right? When you mentioned them telling you to go away and you came back with a blue sky plan, and they just said, that's nothing.
Massive,
that's
right?
Completely within our remit. Like, what did you originally offer? Like, did you think they were going to say no?
What? Just that.
What was on that plan?
Maybe actually, in terms of, I mean, these are things that, hopefully over time could be like further announced and developed, and they're still raw ideas. But we were thinking about films, like making short films, and having working closely with a TV and production company they have there, and ideas of like massive celebrations and like shows and all these kind of things. That in terms of like knowing the practicality of the building and how they usually work, does it fit? And actually, the beauty is that what we're offering is really different. And they have green lighted it because they're like, yes, we're embracing difference. We're embracing like tearing up the structure that's existed before and starting fresh.
Chenube, have you ever worked with Royal Court before?
No, never. That was my very first experience with the Royal Court, which I was very grateful to have. And like Philip said, knowing that we're the first associate company in history for them was just even more. Yeah, what's the word? Sorry. It heightened that feeling of just, we're part of something that's even bigger than we could have even imagined. So yeah, that was my first time being connected to them at all.
What was the first project that you went into then, and how did you go about recruiting? Did they already have young people in mind? Did they already have particular groups within communities that they thought, these young people need access to a provision, and actually Trybe, you'd be perfect for this?
Chenube?
Oh, I thought he was going to go. So how we recruited for that was mainly through social media. Like I worked with Philip to sort of draft up a timeline of what needs to happen and when and all that sort of stuff. Firstly, deciding what exactly it is that we want to provide, workshops wise, and what we want that to entail, what the themes might be. Sorry, and things like that, and then determining when, how we need to get people in, how we need to recruit these young men. But it was mainly social media, just putting those shout outs out, asking people to refer people that they know that might want to get involved, and things like that. And it kind of just it kind of just worked itself out in a way, which was amazing, but also quite like, oh wow, like, all these people, we didn't expect necessarily to have to not turn people away. We never turn people away, but having to say, okay, not this time, but stay within our reach, keep in contact. We'll keep in contact with you, and as soon as we do another project, you'll be one of the first people we come to. So being in a position where we're actually having to do something like that was very, inspiring. But yeah, that's essentially it. And then obviously working with Royal Court in order to discuss when and times and things like that. And obviously with all the restrictions that were kind of still in place at the time, not restrictions at all, as opposed to just ways of just making sure that things are safe in order for people to come into the space and things like that. So just negotiating or discussing how that would work, because obviously we were still in the time where if one person gets pinged, then the whole thing has to shut down and all that sort of stuff. So just managing those sorts of things and just keeping in communication with the team as well as about what we're trying to do and what we're trying to achieve as well at the end of it, and what those outputs will be, how we'll gather those that data or the feedback and things like that. And yes, we did ask the participants for feedback, but even I wasn't prepared for the way that they would feedback to us, because yes, they all sent their videos and it was all lovely, but the depths to which they went to and how detailed they were about their experience, I wasn't prepared for, and was very touched by that, really. But yeah, it was just social media and its powers. It did its thing. But obviously the team behind that were enabling that as well. So yeah.
Did those outcomes align with that initial pitch, Philip? What were the goals of this initial project?
Yeah, I would say the goal was to see if what we're doing is working. I think there was so much planning that went into it, and like we had attempted to maybe do it earlier in the year and do it on Zoom, and then actually that didn't quite work out, and we're really glad it didn't quite work out, because we realized actually the physical experience is what wins. I think if touch wood that we don't end up in a lockdown again. If we were to, I think now we can make it work, but I think it was really important to begin with that we were in a space. And so the aim was just to provide a theme to explore during, joy was something that just kind of was just something that's been on our mind a lot. And I think especially in a year that hasn't felt that joyous, a chance to reflect and connect with that feeling again felt really important. And so, yeah, the aim was to run for 3 days and having day 4 being a sharing, and just see how that goes, really. But we were so overwhelmed by what was made by day 1. We had realized the skill set level that they have within them. Not that they had necessarily explored it yet, but we were like, wow, this is a very high level and standard of work. And so after day 1, we were kind of all turning to each other going, okay, when this is done, there seems to be material that we probably need to try and develop within this year. And so that's one of our new challenges, wow, this project, this thing is much, this is much bigger than we imagined and anticipated. And so we're now trying to respond to that need of expanding everything. So we'll be having an away day really soon, just combing through the year, because I think the year is going to look completely different. I think we thought it might be a much slower start and take each step as it comes, but I think we need to, we realize we really need to get going.
At first.
Yeah, they're really hungry. They're really hungry.
They are, which is lovely. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And so, yeah, that was the aim. And so since we've been offered loads of we've been taking them to theatre shows, keeping them engaged as much as we can. No one's dropped off or fallen away because they're really invested. And so, yeah, we're working really closely due to just an amazing success of a program.
Yeah, they've got that group chat as well that they're quite active within as well, which is quite nice.
Yeah.
Because I think some of them had never met each other before as well. So
honestly,
having that, this is what it's about as well. Is forming those bonds and developing new relationships as well. So that's really nice as well.
Were there any surprises in relation to the insights that you got from the young people? Did they react to your work how you expected, or did things pop up along the way that actually you weren't ready for or expecting?
I wouldn't say so. I think I was the part. What got me most surprised was that the young people were ready to open up and go so deep so quickly. I didn't anticipate that at all. I did not anticipate. Some of them shared some really deep and personal things that I think it reflected the quality or the way in which we tried to work with them, that they felt safe enough to share. I didn't expect that. There are a few stories that I'm talking to the team about, and I just didn't really expect it. But in terms of the actual content, no, but that's more just because of maybe my background. But I think the other thing that did strike me is how strong. One thing we really spoke about is that we want Trybe, of course, it being in the name, to be about forming really strong bonds. But it was still a surprise just how strong some of those bonds were, and from what I can see, still are. And actually, we feel like, particularly with this last group, they will go away and have their quote unquote tribe. They've been going to each other's birthdays, they're doing stuff together. I've seen some of them have been acting together and stuff. So it's like, wow, this is actually, and they didn't know each other. And we're like, wow, this is crazy, because you can see on the socials a sustained kind of engagement between the group, which is absolutely what we wanted. So that definitely did surprise me. I don't remember observing taking a new group together, and after a handful of days, I've never seen that. I haven't seen that.
Yeah, I can agree with. Sorry.
Powerful.
No, I was just saying I'm agreeing with Steph. I wasn't necessarily surprised with what was being said necessarily. It was more so them being comfortable enough to share the things they were sharing with us so soon. And for me as well, literally watching what we're about what Trybe is about unfold right before our eyes. Like, they were sharing what they were sharing through a creative medium, expressing themselves through spoken word, through rap, through what have you, and sharing such deep things, literally by day one, day two. And it was just like, okay, we're already there. And yeah, that was quite, like Steph said, I wasn't prepared for that at that stage. I thought maybe that would come later, not even in that project necessarily, in that first project, maybe in a future one, once they've, felt more comfortable with who they're working with and with us and things like that. But to know that they were that comfortable that soon was quite, pleasantly surprising.
What sort of concerns or opinions did the young people share with you? Were there any commonalities between what they expressed?
Yeah, there were a few themes that popped out. I've got some. I don't know, Steph, if you had some too. But a few of the kind of the headlines that popped up were like, especially when we spoke about pain, how pain has led to joy. So one of them had spoken about a very current situation when they which we didn't know, when one of them was sadly stabbed last year, which was one of the things that popped up. Another person, there were quite a few themes about like fatherlessness that had come up as well, and also heartbreak. Actual heartbreak within relationships was something that was in the room, which I was really like impressed with how courageous it is to speak about those things in front of not just people, but other young men. Do you know what I mean? And being brave enough to take the front foot. Yeah.
I definitely thought the ones on relationships, I was like, okay. I think I thought, okay, because it's one thing to talk about the stabbing incident, for example, is really, really painful, traumatic. But in terms of the social context, is, I've been stabbed. Do you know what I mean? It can carry a social weight, rightly or wrongly. But to open up about your vulnerability within relationships, again, in a way that can make you feel disempowered, you have to show a level of vulnerability and weakness to the whole group. I really thought, that's powerful, like, for you. And actually, I was quite surprised that even that was, to bring that story to the front of the table, like, there were just so many layers to why I thought that was important. To even reflect that that's actually the number one thing. Maybe not, it may not have been actually the number one thing, but it's clearly one of the main things that's been on your mind in said given time. Like, it's easy to forget what is important to people at different moments in time, even the things kind of around fatherlessness, or if you think about the stereotypes, particularly, amongst black people around the lack of fathers. Now, if you strip that the stereotype, sometimes you can kind of think, well, that might have been the case for your whole life, and you should just get on with it. Get on with it. And actually, it's not as simple as just getting on with things. These are real issues that when we say we want things resolved, it's not always about learning how to resolve an issue. There are some things that we can't resolve, but we can learn how to, or develop ways to manage them more positively. Sorry, go on, Phil. I can see.
It's a really good point, because with those things that are maybe not solvable, still those topics are things that are universally relatable. Do you know what I mean? Like, so being able to, when some of these stories were brought in front of like royal court staff, we could see the connection to these stories, to the feelings, fears and worries or sadness. Like, these are things that we all feel. And so it just to extend that point, really, it was so like beautiful to see that extended commonality. And that is what we are about. We are literally about stories connecting people, connecting groups that are maybe distance because of society, or try to distance us. In story, being able for us to all see each other from all walks of life, all types of backgrounds, all types of ethnicities, but being able to just connect as humans. That's our goal. That is solely why we exist. Yeah.
Could I ask off the back of that, and this is a little bit of a loaded question here, so just bear with me while I try to articulate this right. Chenube, could I ask, what do you find are some of the challenges, if there are any challenges, of working with an all-male demographic as the only female in the company? And I hate that question, but I think it's an important question to ask. As a female practitioner, how does that shape your approach to working with those young men?
Yeah. No, it is actually a good question, because obviously I do not share the same experiences as the young Black men in the room. So there is already, I don't want to use the word divide, but there is already that thing of like, I don't know your experience, what you've gone through. I can't share that. However, for me personally, I didn't have a second thought when it came to being involved with this, because it is in line with what I am passionate about. It is in line with, I do want to be a part of the change that we are trying to bring about. And it's about finding my own way within Trybe and what that means for me, but also allowing the space for these young Black men to be and do as they need to do within Trybe. I think a challenge that I kind of face within it is knowing, or when certain things come up in terms of like, oh, there's a workshop that wants to be delivered in wherever for these young Black men. It's like, okay, that's probably not my area. I can't go to a group of young Black men and talk about, the experiences of young Black men and things like that. That wouldn't be my area, but I am still part of something that is providing that safe space for them to express themselves, I still want, as a young Black person, for people that look like me in whatever way to elevate, to progress, to express themselves, to go on and live their lives with the tools that we're providing them with. So I definitely feel like my place within Trybe is valid. My place within those spaces are valid, but just in a slightly different way. And it is enlightening for me as well to, in return, have more insight into that young Black male experience as well. It just helps me understand males in general as well, and just I see it as an enriching experience for both parties, basically. So I definitely think it's a valid question, and one that I've asked myself a few times in this process. But I do recognize where I am still valuable, if that makes sense, and how it's valuable for me in return. So yeah.
I know it's a weird question, and it was really, really difficult to phrase.
But it's valid. It's definitely valid. But even beyond being a female, I think we've had conversations as a team as well. It's like, we don't necessarily have to be a team of Black people. Like, if the team should eventually grow, it's not, the criteria isn't you must be Black, you must be this, you must be that. You must share the passion. You must share the vision. You must share what it is that we're trying to achieve. You must work, just be passionate about working towards those goals. That's the criteria. If you happen to be an older white female, you happen to be, it doesn't matter, as long as you share the same visions. But I think in terms of when you're getting really down into, certain discussions, I think it's important to have other young Black men in the room. But if people outside of that criteria in the room as well, and the participants feel safe enough to still share within that, then I think, it's not to say that those people can't be in the room.
Thank you. So what is next? 2022, Trybe House Theatre Company. What have you got going on?
Yep, these are questions these are the big headline questions we're trying to address in our away day. Well, yeah, we've got a plan. We've got a plan. In part of the 3-year partnership, we've got the steps as to what's next. I can sort of give you the headlines, like the bigger the bigger headline. So the aim this year is about establishment. That was the key, being able to meet with a group as regularly as possible, providing work, college, everything that they're doing in their lives, to be able to frequently meet at the Royal Court and again develop their skills further, enabling that they're able to tell their story and absolutely like max out that capacity as much as possible. So yeah, and that a part of that involves us taking them to theatre shows, allowing them to learn other aspects of the trade, allowing them to meet artists along the way. Year 2, is when we have a bit of a shift towards mentoring. So allowing ourselves as members of staff to be mentored by people who we look up to, as well as active members in Trybe House having mentors that come in and are able to like enrich them with their story, their journey, and us being able to collate their stories ahead of making a production, which is the aim in year 3 to do a co-production. Well, we are doing co-production with the Royal Court. But in between that, we aim to do like a jamboree celebration, which is like a social gathering of hopefully 50 plus young Black men, and being able to like have an intensive week of gathering more. Like our aim is just to keep gathering, starting tribe groups and gathering more groups until we eventually become one massive group. Do you know what I mean? And to also expand into doing educational work as well. So being able to hopefully visit schools and like develop the young men that we have into leadership roles too, so that we have those who are members eventually running workshops or beginning to do further writing or develop pieces and all that kind of stuff. So those are some of our like headlines. So those are like our next focuses. But our away day is very much focusing on this year. Now that we've got this amazing piece of writing, we plan to just initially share and sort of move on to the next thing, just work out exactly what we do with that.
Is that part of the Payne's Plough partnership?
So that's a whole other thing in itself. So the Payne's Plough partnership was our first partnership, which was really exciting. So I've been directing a play, which has just started this tour called Sessions, which is about a young Black man who goes to therapy for the first time. So like the perfect opportunity for Trybe House to get involved on something that's extremely close to our hearts and our company. So we have made workshops based on the play whilst it's traveling and touring across the UK, that explores the themes in the play. And from that, so we have workshop content in terms of we're working in, at the moment, I know it's Brighton, and there's also some other venues up north that we're going to, and more will grow. But wonderfully, Stefan put together like a well-being digital pack that's going to go to schools and other community groups for them to further engage with the play and really unpick the themes in much more depth, actually, and like talking to some things like isolation and other heavy themes that are existing throughout the play, which we've just got the sign off, and which will now be enrolled in schools, which is really exciting and massive for us to be able to like spread our work regionally.
But what an opportunity, right? Just to raise your profile, and especially a piece that explores similar themes to the work that you're delivering as part of Trybe House. What are the best ways for people to get in contact?
Yeah, so starting with social media, because that tends to work best for us. And I think that's also part of this kind of new way of communicating and just new styles of practice. So Trybe House, spelt with a Y, Trybe. We get called Trybe a lot, but it's Trybe. But that's fine because it means they're engaging. But we're on Instagram. You can always drop us a DM, a direct message. We're on Twitter as well. Trybe House is also on Twitter, so you can always drop us a message and we'll always reply. You can always email us as well. It's info@trybehousetheatre.com. .org, .uk. So that's info@trybehousetheatre.org.uk. And that's for any inquiries. There's like a list, whether you want to speak to us about partnerships, whether you want to make a general inquiry, or anything else. So people are always welcome to email us if they want to speak about anything. We're really up for meeting new people and further connecting.
And just to ask, Philip, do you take workshop bookings? Like if people are interested in getting you out on site? Yeah.
So we take workshop bookings now, officially. And so Payne's Plough was a wonderful Kickstarter to us rolling out workshops. But yeah, we take it for educational settings. So if there are any groups similar to the type of group that we specifically work with, please give us a call, and we can always negotiate how best workshops might work. Whether it's like a one-off workshop, we can do that. Whether it's something that might be termly, we can do that. Where we're really adjustable to the need of the groups that people may want us to come in and support.
And I'm sure that there are going to be so many schools and theatres that want your company and want you guys in working with young people in their communities. I'd just like to say a massive thank you for your time this afternoon, Philip. Forever an inspiration, and it's an honour to have you as a colleague and a contemporary. Chenube, Stefan, thank you very much. It's lovely to meet you, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, man. We've not done this before together, so it's the first time we've ever spoken about it. So it's really, thank you for providing the platform.
Yeah, thank you. It's been really nice to talk about these things again. It keeps the excitement going.
Big up you, man. Big up you for the platform.
Yeah, thank you, Tom.